Welcome to you here, my live students, and welcome to whoever is out there in cyberspace. Tonight is our 5th class in From Jesus to the Christ. We may have, in addition to next week, we may have an additional class because, well, frankly, I have not gotten through all the material yet that I had hoped. If you're having any technical difficulties, as usual, our technical guru, Mark, is ready to receive your emails. Mark at truthunity.net. I hope you can all see the telephone number here on the board. So if you would like to call in, and at 8 o'clock, I will open it up, but if there is something unclear to you, even before then, you may also call. And so tonight we will consider this 5th sign of the Messiah, which is Jesus walking on the sea. So as we begin our time together, I invite you to find a comfortable place in your seat, and close your eyes. And let us together, if you know it, if you don't know it, just allow the words to sink in. This is Charles Fillmore's invocation. I am now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge thy presence and thy power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase my mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to thy perfect law. And so acknowledge that you are silently now in the presence of pure being. You are always in the presence of pure being, but recognize it now. That acknowledgement of it stimulates it to come forth in you. We are already whole. We only need to erase all the limitations that we put on the possibility of healing. One power, one presence, one life, one mind, and we are one with that one. Let us rest in that awareness for a few minutes in the silence. Now, as we return our attention to this time and this place, having now released some of those blocks to our awareness, we are ready to form and shape new experiences into our world. And for an awareness of that process of accessing the silence and bringing forth that kingdom from within, we are so grateful, and we do give thanks in the name and through the power of the Christ that lives within us all. One thing I would just like to say about the excitement, there are different levels of excitement with unity. Adine, would you do me a favor and just unplug the phone jack there? Just the phone jack. Thank you. That there is that initial excitement where you think you have the key to manifesting everything that you want. But then at the first sign of challenges, that excitement begins to diminish. We're going to be talking about this with regard to Peter, who at first he's very excited because Jesus tells him to walk on the sea, and he does. But then he looks down, and that's when we fall back onto our old habit of looking at the problem. So we believe in possibility and we believe in impossibility, and that's two powers. That is two powers. Nothing is impossible to us with God. Have you ever been in a situation where everything seemed impossible? Have you? Did you get out of it? Okay. I have been in a situation that seemed not only impossible, but dangerous. Okay. Amazing. Okay.
I had this conversation with my oldest son this summer, where last summer all of us were in turmoil, and we were all praying, and we didn't know how it was going to work out.
Okay.
And then this summer, everybody's like, everything worked out, everything got resolved. All of us are in an awesome place, and it was nice for the three of us to realize together that we had come through that.
Yes.
And
I forgot, I was talking to some of you last night about how pretty much everything I learned at an early age, I learned from the ocean. I guess I wasn't talking to you. Because, you can, if you think of the sea as virtually unlimited, you look out, and as far as you can see is ocean. I think I was born a mermaid. And the greatest excitement for me was to be able to catch a wave right at that crucial point before it broke, but where it was at its height, and if I caught it just right, it would carry me all the way to the shore. And I just loved doing that. One day, I can remember quite vividly that I did not catch it at the right place. And what did I do? I thought I could turn my back on it and dig my feet in. Well, guess what? I had a rather bumpy ride in trying to resist the power of the ocean. And I ended up at the same place, but it was a bumpy ride. Then I discovered something, that if I if I was not in the right place, instead of turning my back on it, I could actually dive through it and come out on the other side. That's what we're actually talking about tonight. Except Jesus walked on the water. When miracles happen, I learned other lessons from the ocean, but that will suffice for the moment. So what happened? We're going to turn to the story, but often when people are told of miracles, they will look for some human explanation. And say, well, see, this is what happened. For instance, in the feeding of the 5,000, which we looked at last week, people say one of two things. That, one, they received spiritual food and therefore they didn't need real food. I don't think so. And the other explanation was, well, people always took their bread along with them, and the miracle was that they were willing to bring it out and share it with all those people. But do we do that sometimes? We try to find a logical explanation for things that are outside of human logic. We have a hard time, and they're not really miracles. They're simply functioning at a deeper law, a deeper level of awareness where the law functions. So there's a quote from Charles Fillmore in The Mystery of John, where in essence he says that it's evident that we have an ability. I'll read it to you. He says, there's clear evidence of our ability as spiritual beings to mold the ever-present substance. Remember, substance is that which stands under every form, every manifestation. It comes from Latin, meaning to stand under, and to form and shape it according to our thought. Our thought molds that substance and then brings it into form. So we do have that capacity. And so in that story, as you recall, the crowd, the disciples, had the human view of, we only have this, we only have 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. That was an impossible situation with 5,000 people coming. So what's the formula? Would you like to tell me what the formula is for taking 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and bringing about a dinner to serve? What's step number 1? What did Jesus do?
He was
Really is
grateful.
enough.
That's second step. Gave thanks. Oh, that's true. He had the people sit down. Yes. Good. Okay, what's next?
But to the available substance.
And he looked at the available substance. But he looked up. Okay, he had the people sit down. Then he looked up. Now he didn't look out in the sky to find God. He looked at here in the divine idea of substance. And if your attention is totally focused on the divine idea of infinite substance, there is no room for lack. Because the human tendency is, when there's money in the bank, we believe in substance. But when the money runs low, we start to hoard, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. So we give thanks for what we have, we make the best use of it, And of course, when Jesus gave thanks, he's giving thanks with a laser beam of light which broke apart the atoms of that substance. And then of course there's enough, because he broke right through into the infinite substance that is behind those 2 loaves of bread and those 5 loaves of bread, behind the sensory evaluation and the 2 fish. The human idea is there's not enough. But the divine idea says yes and no. Yes, there's always enough substance, even though it does not appear to be enough visible, formed substance. Okay, that's in essence what we talked about last week. So the formula, have the people sit down, quiet down all those thoughts, then look up in a quiet state. Isn't that when the divine ideas come to you? Thank God for what you have. A little becomes a lot, and then you share. You share what you have. You don't hoard because you don't see very much, but you give. Because in the spiritual world, you have to give in order to receive. And what is given freely and with love returns to us multiplied. But if you give thinking, well, now I had $5 and now I only have 4. If I give, think of the widow's mite. She gave all that she had, and it was counted to be the greatest gift. Now, Jesus, this obviously was an impressive miracle because it appeared in 4 Gospels, all 4 Gospels. And Jesus left in a hurry, and he attributes their following him, these great crowds following him, because they were fed, okay, looking for more food. And so he leaves in a hurry. He sends the disciples ahead, and he goes up in the mountain to once again be by himself and pray, because here is a real situation. He's got this entire crowd following him. So the disciples go and get in a boat. All right, this is in John chapter 6. And I'm starting with verse 13. To get the full value of this, I think you really also have to read the one in Matthew, so we'll read that one next. But there's a slightly different motive, I will say, but in a moment. So perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him a king. You see, the people were so impressed with what he had done, they were going to force him to be a king. Well, that was not Jesus' idea, to become a king. That is the kind of king they wanted. So he withdrew up to the mountain by himself. When evening came, okay, starting to get dark, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. Capernaum was pretty much the center of where a lot of healing and miracles took place. The house of comfort, the place of consolation. That's what Capernaum means. Yes?
I was kind of excited because I looked up Capernaum in the Hebrew. And it's village of Nahum, Capernaum,
yes,
the village of Nahum. And when you go to Nahum, in verse 3 of the first chapter, it says, in whirlwind in storms is his way. And then in verse 4 it says, he rebukes the sea and makes it dry.
Yes. Yes.
Thought that was pretty exciting.
Isn't that cool? Yes, it is. And that's what's exciting to me as well, is to find the meaning of words, because in Aramaic, in Hebrew, all you have to do is look at the words, look at the action phrases, and look at the movements of mind, and you've got the whole story. And then, to top it off, if you have the numbers, you've got a metaphysical language to work with. So Jesus is sending the disciples off to a boat. Now, what, I'll ask you, because you're not afraid to give an answer, what does a boat represent?
Well, a refuge and a gathering spot, and and something that floats above turmoil.
Okay, all right. Now, there's a storm, and I put some historical information on the sheet for you, because in this body of water, the kind of storm that came up is pretty much like what comes up on our Gulf Coast, you folks down there in Florida, like Katrina, it's like a real hurricane. Why? Because this is 700 feet below sea level. 700 feet. 7. Okay. And it's 150 feet deep, this water. That's 700 feet below sea level. So can you imagine what happens when a wind comes through there? It's a big, big storm. Have you ever had storms in your life? Okay. Storms that are absolutely, now in this, it's not so much the storm that is panicking the disciples, but in the Matthew story, it is definitely the storm. Here, so boat is ordinary consciousness. This is where we take our refuge. We feel safe in human consciousness, our own efforts, and then when there's a storm, we are tossed about on this ordinary sea. All right? Are we not? So they are panicking because they don't know it's Jesus. And also in Aramaic, and I don't know this from my own study of Aramaic, but it's not so much on the sea as it is walking along the shore. And so they see someone in the dark walking along the shore, and they think it's a ghost. They think it is a demon. Okay, so, and they're very afraid of demons. Yeah.
Didn't one of the other accounts also say that it looked like he was just going to walk right by him? He was just going to. He was going to.
In another translation.
No, in one of the other Gospels, it said. It looked like he was just
okay.
going. He was just going to leave him there.
Yeah. Because they hadn't gotten very far. What is thought to be a few miles. But they weren't making much headway because of the storm. And neither do we make a lot of headway in overcoming challenges without the Christ in the boat. All right, so they panicked because they saw what they thought was this evil spirit walking along the shore. It was a superstition in that time that evil spirits hung out in the dark along the shore. And so here's what happens. Jesus had not yet come to them, so they were getting worried that Jesus had not yet come. The sea rose because a strong wind was blowing. Now you have to keep those facts in mind about what it means to have a big storm. Okay. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near the boat. So they've got the translation wrong, but Jesus is walking on the sea. They were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." When you are frightened, do you say to yourself, "I am a spiritual being," or do you say, "Help"?
Help.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mhm.
Pretty much. Caught in a storm, we feel that we need some help.
I am, though.
Yeah.
I am.
I am. That's it. That is your help. And then they were glad to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. Okay, the journey becomes easier when the Christ, the I am, is your guide. All right. So without Jesus in the boat, they're tossed about. With Jesus in the boat, they get to where they're going. Okay. Now, what's a demon? We talked about this last night in our Wednesday class. What's an evil spirit? It's really, really simple.
It's something that distracts you from the I am. It's something that
That
takes
is,
you out of presence.
that's true, but it's a little more tenacious than
the
that.
ego.
No, I would say, you can judge, but I'll tell you my sense of it from how it appears in the Bible, and that is we have belief systems in human consciousness, not just ordinary negative feelings, all right? We're not talking about just ordinary negative feelings, but we're talking about a whole belief system that is fueled either by fear or resentment, and it is so hardened and so crystallized that it has a life of its own, and it is blocking any avenue of the Christ to express in you. Have you ever either been in a situation or known someone who has been in a situation where their life is in a crisis and they do exactly the wrong thing because of a belief system? Someone who is dying of emphysema and refuses to stop smoking. All right? It happens. But there's always that possibility that the crisis breaks down barriers and then people become open to new energy. That's what Jesus calls the unforgivable sin, is to block all entry. Now, we can't thwart the divine plan, but we can impede our progress by putting up a complete wall to any new energy, any new ideas, any new information. We see this in religion a lot, and we see it in politics, and we see it in just ordinary situations in life where people are so identified with their cherished beliefs that are fueled by a negative feeling. Fear, resentment, and
Can guilt do it too?
guilt.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. And
That's a belief system.
that can really be like a formidable wall. Okay. Now, so that's why they were afraid in this rendition of Jesus walking on the sea. Because here they see Jesus walking on the sea. But they see someone, but they don't know it's Jesus. So
they believed in this, even in those ghosts and stuff.
yeah,
it's up to where they couldn't even see Jesus. They couldn't even recognize him.
And so isn't that human consciousness? We believe in the Christ, but whenever something scary comes up, we forget about that belief. All right, duality, dual consciousness, health and sickness, abundance and lack, okay, good and evil. In human consciousness, we have, by virtue of being in physicality, we live, see, and view the world in opposites. But it is possible to go within and cultivate an awareness with a single eye. And that's what we're doing when we go to the source in meditation. So that even when storms come along, we can say, the power and presence within me is stronger. Haven't we said that in Silent Unity? The power and presence within me, nothing out here can disturb me. Now go to Matthew and see the difference here. Because Matthew attributes the fear to the storm. So, and this is chapter 14, verse 22. Then he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side. Okay, he's sending them ahead, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was many furlongs distant from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. Okay, so he's building up here this storm image, and these all apply to any situation that looks threatening to you. It doesn't even have to be a physical something, but it can be an emotionally turbulent something. And in the fourth watch of the night, all right, the Romans counted the watch. There were 4 watches, and they started at 6 at night, and they were 4 hours each. So it looks like it's like in late afternoon or dusk when this happened. Okay? Fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. And let's see. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." So they didn't recognize Jesus here either. And they cried out for fear. But immediately he spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Have no fear." Okay, what is it that is the opposite of fear?
Faith.
Faith. All right. Our faith nourishes our sheep. All right. Now, the I am statement that goes with this is, I am the good shepherd. Now, I'm going to read the rest of it, and you tell me why that statement works for this story. And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, bid me come to you on the water." Is that what we want? Hey, if this is really a God thing, I want to have a sign, because I need to have a sign. And so he says, so ask me to come, and then I'll see if I can walk on the water like you do. And he does. He said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, when he took his attention off of the solution and looked to what appeared to be a serious problem, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, do we ever sink into our problems? He cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand, his hand, that organ of action, and caught him, saying to him, O man of little faith. Do you ever tell yourself, why don't I have more faith? Why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. So, I am the good shepherd. There's no sheep in this story. There's no shepherds. Why is this it?
So that doesn't have anything to do with the sheep's gate?
No.
I mean, it just happens that sheep
That's
got gates.
I am the gate of the sheep. I am the
Oh.
door. Okay.
I am the door.
Yes, I am the door. Okay. I am the good shepherd. It could, I think that is also fitting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But why here?
He's
Well,
taking care of the disciples, teaching them like a shepherd would care for the sheep.
Okay,
It's thoughts.
that's good.
I mean, it's keeping them focused on hopeful, on positive, and not on negative or not.
Okay, so what is the role of a shepherd?
to help the sheep, and so he
Yeah.
helped Peter's
To
faith by taking his hand
guide
and
the
bringing attention
sheep.
back to him.
And so when we allow the Christ in us to be our guide, we strengthen, and we can see. Have you ever invested, you have a little bit of spiritual faith, and you decide to try, so you decide to take one baby step in faith. And you say, wow, okay. And then that strengthens your faith. Every time you take a step in faith, take your eyes off of the storm, take your eyes off of the danger, and know and remember that place in you that is your only safety, that is your only guide. Okay? Make sense?
So simply put, what's the answer to your question? So I don't forget it.
How does the I am statement relate
Mhm.
to the story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, when the sheep are in trouble, now we're talking about shepherds and sheep, animals. When the sheep are in trouble, do you remember the parable of the lost sheep?
Mm-hmm. And that's
The
99.
shepherd leaves all 99 and goes after that lost one. And yes, they are thoughts, metaphysically. One thought of fear. Okay.
It's all you need
That's
to screw things up.
Yeah, that's right. Or, in this case, the shepherd would lay down his life for his sheep. He knows every sheep by name, just like here's Jerry and here's Gracie. All those sheep had their own names, and he would call to them and they would follow him. And no one except the shepherd. There were two kinds of shepherds. There were the kind of shepherds who owned the sheep,
In the hireling.
And then there were the ones who were hired, the ones who owned them. Those were the good shepherds, and they were the ones who cared more about the sheep than their own reputation. You know, because you say, well, I got 99 left. The thing about the 99 is that if you had 100 sheep in that time, if you had 100 sheep, you were considered above the fray. You were considered wealthy. And so losing one sheep, that's what it meant to people there. If one sheep was lost, and it's like, we don't want to even give one thought to fear. So faith nourishes the thoughts, as Jesus in this story gave help to Peter. And I think even further than that, when we are doing our work and putting our whole self into our work, you know, that's what's called, that's fulfillment, performing the service that you are here to do. Okay, and so we're like a good shepherd, shepherding our thoughts, keeping them all in line, and being a guide, keeping them all on track, you know, and they're good followers, those sheep. Okay, so let's see, where are we to right now? We're to 744. So that's pretty much the story of that. But think of the time when you think any times that you start out with faith initially. If you start a business, or if you start any project and you start out with faith and you get part way and you run into a snag, you run into a challenge. Does your interest flag? Does your faith in, it doesn't even have to be something important. You know, what if you start a weaving project or a knitting project and you run into something that, oh well, you know, that's impossible, and give up at the slightest obstacle. That's how we measure our faith. Now, we always have a faculty of faith. It's one of our 12 divine faculties. But where is your faith invested? That's the question. Where is it invested? Is it invested in the problem? Is it invested in the danger of outer situations can really harm you, can kill you? And not that they don't. I mean, all the disciples, but it's how you meet that situation that determines if there is growth or not.
What's the faculty that doubles down on it when you get
Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew is Peter's brother. And Andrew, I've always loved Andrew. Andrew's my favorite disciple, I have to say, because Andrew is the steady, you know, this is the steady, constant, keep on, keeping on. He keeps Peter in line. He found the Messiah in the Gospel of John. Yeah. It's a different order. It's Andrew who finds the Messiah and leads his brother Peter to Jesus.
Yeah, my father gave me Andrew. You don't never quit.
Yeah, and yeah.
It's not.
There are people who will not quit. Now there are times when you need to quit, but in this case, when it comes to where you put your faith, there is the place not to quit.
What's the time to quit?
The time to quit is when you realize you're investing time and energy and you've made a bad investment. All right?
Cut your loss.
Because if we are so identified with our creations, you know, what we have built, and it becomes an item of pride or power or something like that, it's time to give that up. Because anyway, the universe is going to take it from you, and that resistance really, really depletes energy and consciousness. You know, when you become so identified with something that does not even bring you fulfillment and is not serving anyone else, why would you not quit? Just out of, well, it's my idea, and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah, if you trade the markets, you got it. The
Yeah.
small profit's better than a loss, and the small loss is better than a great loss.
But I have heard people say so many times they won't let go of something because it costs so much money. And I spent all that money, and so I'm just going to hold on to it. Good, give it away.
Yeah.
There's somebody else who will enjoy it. I don't know. You have to think of your own experiences. I could certainly think of mine. That doesn't have to happen to be, well, I'm not afraid to let go of things that cost money, so I tend to release things a little more easily than some people. But thoughts or beliefs, you know, what beliefs do you hold on to that don't serve you? What situations do you tend to hold on to that do not serve you or others? Okay. The fulfillment comes when you give your whole self, like the shepherd, to the activity that you are actually here to do. We all have gifts and talents and different consciousness to give to the world in service, and the world needs every single one. Every single one. Giving in the capacity that we are designed to give. And that's where our fulfillment comes and where everyone is served. So the happier you are with what you're doing and the more people you are serving as a result of that, that's kind of a win all the way around. Okay. When we cry for help, where do we cry? Do we cry for the Christ? Or do we cry for the policeman? Or where do we cry?
I pray.
Yeah. Okay. So that is, that's a story of that. And it is almost time for people to call in. And while we're waiting for that to happen, if it happens, I'd like to introduce you to the next one, which is the man born blind. And this one you will find in John chapter 9, verse 5. And I always hope you will be looking at how these different healing incidents, occurrences, are different from one another, because there are differences. And Jesus, a lot of the healings that were healings where Jesus was involved were blindness. So what is blindness?
Can't see
Okay.
on many levels.
On
probably.
many levels, that's right. Right. No vision. We're blind to the truth about ourselves. How do we know that? Because we have no insight. Okay? We have no insight. And here, the disciples are coming along when Jesus meets the blind man, and they say, who sinned? The blind man? He was blind from birth. Who sinned? This man or his parents? How many times do we ask why? Why did this happen to me?
You want to put the blame somewhere.
We want to blame some condition or some person, or maybe it was our bad childhood, or one of our parents, or a teacher or the conditions in which I'm a victim, right? That makes me a victim.
Yeah, some people love drama.
And why, asking why, is the wrong question. Always why. Because it implies that somehow maybe God made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Somehow God screwed up with me, maybe not with everyone else, but I don't know. This should not be happening to me. That's the subtext here when we ask that. Now, there was a belief that in those times that sins were visited from the Father to the Son, but that's a human belief.
Isn't that in one of the prophets?
Yeah, it is.
So Jeremiah.
And it's like, do we not look at our parents and hold some of the same beliefs and follow some of the same patterns? Maybe not consciously, but we find ourselves using our parents or our teachers or our priests or as role models.
That's what Myrtle denied.
And that's what Myrtle denied. She said, I'm a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness.
Ooh, that's good.
No more blame game.
No more. You're right. That's absolutely right. And then Jesus says one of my favorite lines, because all the people who beat themselves up over situations that they find themselves in, and Jesus says, nobody sinned, but it's for the glory of God to come forth. In other words, no matter where you find yourself, it's not the cause of it that you are responsible for finding. You may not even remember what set it in motion. Your role is to look for the solution. And if you ask any question, you say, how do I deal with this? How do I meet this situation in a way that I can grow through it? It's like diving through this big wave that looks like it's going to destroy me. Okay. All right? That is the question to ask. Always challenges are there in your life for the purpose of forcing you to go deeper, because at the source you'll find there's only one power, one presence, one mind, and you are one with that one. So there always is a solution, and within the question lies the solution. So you don't want to ask what's the cause of the problem. Okay, you want to ask, how can I move through this? Because what you want to know is, I want guidance to help me through this in a way that I and all concerned benefit. Right?
Yeah, that shift from why to how really is it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Because
From why to how, because you can stew over the why of it forever. You know, and sometimes it's very obvious about the why. But particularly if you're looking at other people, you know, have you ever noticed how easy it is to say, oh, I know what you ought to do. But we refrain from doing that. And I think the best way to uplift people, particularly the ones who are victimized, or particularly the ones who want you to join in the misery with them, is to say, I have total confidence that you have whatever you need within you. I have total confidence in you. I have ventured to say this to at least one person.
how was it received?
I say that. Okay. But that's what I would do. That's that's what I would do, because it then puts the power, it helps that person take the power back that he or she has given to some outside situation, either some condition of lack or disharmony, or everything happens to me and oh, woe is me. And really, things do happen, in sequence, and it can pile up. But the solution is always the same. It's always the same, that there's one power and one presence, but you have to go to where it is.
The more you focus on the problem, the worse it gets.
Where you put your attention grows stronger in your experience. And belief, if you believe that everything bad happens to you, belief structures experience. Okay, that's another law. Belief, as in mind, so in manifestation. Okay, so this one is extremely rich, I think, in symbols. So if anyone is out there who would like to ask questions, 816-301-6304 is our number here. And I'll continue talking about the man born blind. And the Aramaic word for sin is sata, which means to slip, slide, or deviate. It's the modern word for ice skating, which I find humorous. How you kind of slide away from that true standard. So we're skating on thin ice when we separate ourselves from the source. And aren't the challenges worse if you think your situation is hopeless, that there's nothing I can do? Oh, but there is, and there's something obviously that needs to be released.
Doesn't the Hebrew writer say something about drifting away? You just kind of
that also,
away.
drift or slide away.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Which means sliding away or drifting away from what Charles Fillmore calls the Jesus Christ standard. That's the standard of truth. So what's the truth of the situation? Oh, I am one with the source of abundance. I am one. I have free and open access to God's infinite storehouse of good. I am divinely guided by the Holy Spirit. Anything that you say, so if it's whatever you want, love, I find at the center of my being, infinite, unconditional love. Okay. Always it seems that our problem is looking outside of ourselves to find the answers to what is something that is going on inside of ourselves. And that inside is always a sense of separation from the source of all good. Okay. I listed for you a whole lot of words, so that's for you. And so
I had a question. One of the questions that I really didn't have a good answer for was what does Peter represent in consciousness?
Faith, our faculty of faith.
That's it, just that simple?
Yeah,
okay.
Because in Matthew 16:19, Jesus says to his disciples, and it's Peter who gives the answer, Jesus says, "Who do people say that I am?" Okay, people. And some say, oh, well, you're a prophet, you're Elijah, you are Jeremiah, but who do you say that I am? And it's Peter who says, you are the Christ,
Son of the living God.
the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, flesh and blood, human consciousness has not revealed that to you, but my Father who is in heaven. In other words, that kind of revelation only comes from faith in that one power and presence. And he says, to you, Peter, upon this rock of faith, I build my church, my foundation of spiritual consciousness. What is faith? It's perceiving. It's the perceiving power of the mind that sees beyond the appearances to the truth.
So how did Peter get revealed to at that early point in time?
Well, his name, you have to look at his name, which his name was Simon, which means hearing. Hearing is that most important sense, whose source is in silence and hears the still small voice. All right? And because he was able to see beyond the appearance, and God is invisible. Divine ideas are always invisible. You cannot see them. You have to perceive them with your inner eye. And that's why Jesus says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Okay, so he got a name change. Petros, which means rock. It is faith in that invisible presence that is our solid rock that will get us through any situation. That's the church, the only church that Jesus ever talked about.
So because he could hear, then he could be the rock.
Because he heard the still small voice. That's from where revelations come, from where those insights come. And that's one of the characteristics of a Christ consciousness, is that you take your direction from within yourself. It comes through you. It's not that you figure it out logically and say, well, let's see, you could be Jeremiah, or you could be this. Let's make a list of the pros and the cons, and that's how humans think. In a kind of logic, people make lists of pros and cons. Instead of sitting down, becoming still, and asking for guidance, and then affirming that it's there. Even if you don't see it, okay? Affirm that it is there. And believe that it is there, because it is there. It's just that you haven't seen it.
That's what, when Jesus was talking to the woman at the well,
yes,
and he said, I am the one who is speaking to you.
Yes.
That's an ego eimi statement.
Yes, it is.
In Greek.
It is.
I am the one who speaks to you.
That's right. Yes, I am. And, that story illustrates how all you have to do when you go into the silence is to allow the light to shine on all those beliefs and fears that are lodged there. And if you acknowledge, oh, I see, I have been married to my senses. Oh, I see, I have been plagued with fear of gossip. All these things. I'm so afraid of what people will say about me. All these things. Allow the light to come through, wash it all away, and then all the energy that's locked up in those feelings and thoughts, it returns to the source. So then we have more energy, and we can reform and reshape it into something that we want. And yes, it was revealed to her that Jesus was the Messiah, and she was the first one. And she went and spread the word throughout Samaria, those other parts of consciousness which are still believing in duality, and she spreads the word of the Messiah, the one power that comes to save us.
I think if it might help anybody, I think, because in 7:17, Jesus says, if the one who is willing will know, and I've latched onto that verse and latched onto
If
it,
you are
and I
willing.
want so much to be willing, and I think that's why meditation helps so much, because whatever it's leading me to, even if I don't ask the question, even if I don't throw out the intention, whatever it's leading to, whether it's let go or take this, whatever it is, I think that's helping. That principle where Jesus said.
Well, and so all our faculties, all 12, there's only one power. But God, there are 12 powers of God. And within us, there are 12 faculties, which are channels for the Christ to express. And so as we become more aware of that Christ presence, all those faculties begin to switch from investment in outer to inner. So faith in out here becomes faith in the power and presence within. Okay, and strength, not force, not by power, not by might, but strength is that persistence and that steadfastness, that keep on keeping on. And you can go through every one of the faculties, and the faculty of will, you can either be willful or willing.
Yeah.
And if
Huge.
you are willing, that power and presence wants to express in and through you. And so it wants to more than we normally want it. So it's God's desire. And so yes, just be willing to accept it and to claim all the good that comes to you and through you. So the greatest accomplishments, which we don't have any part of it, just that willingness to allow it to happen. And I'm going to be doing a class, not sure exactly of the date, but in September, late September, on the 12 oils, 12 powers. So you're all invited to come and smell the fragrances that encourage these particular faculties to develop, which serve as an aid. So, everything has a frequency. And if we lift that frequency up, mantras definitely lift the frequency, but there are fragrances that lift the frequency. There are sounds that lift our frequencies.
Yeah, and smells work on the subconscious level, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. All of them do. All of them do. Okay.
There was a thing in the Bible dictionary about Peter,
Yes.
and maybe you can expand on it. But it said Petros. The name is masculine gender, but rock, Petra, is the feminine gender. And so Peter had.
Yeah. So faith in the one power, which is, thought and feeling. Remember the wedding at Cana. All right. So when you perceive the truth and your feeling is invested in supporting it. Okay. Hold that thought. Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, Ellen. I didn't want to interrupt the gentleman speaking. Let him finish, and then I had a comment to make.
Oh, go ahead.
He's telling me to go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. One thing I want to say is tonight was very different technically because we can hear whoever spoke very loudly. It came in very clear and was very loud. I don't know if they're wearing microphones.
No one is. No one is.
Distractingly loud?
So I don't know what's different, but it's good because we can hear them, because sometimes we can't hear them when they're speaking.
Okay.
And we're not sure what they're saying, but tonight it's very clear.
Oh, good.
I have some thought comes to my mind about what we're covering tonight, a man born blind. And we say that every person, every individual, every action in the Bible is a representation of because, so in a sense, I'm the man born blind. And so,
Yes.
when I'm born blind, I am, and I think you said that blind means no insight. And I think the thought comes to me, and it's not a one-time thing. There are occasions when I have no insight. I lose that insight. I'm blind to
Absolutely.
something that is revealed to me, or something that is being said. Kind of what you all were talking about tonight. And the other thing is, and I always was amazed at this, whose sin is this? His or his parents. And in previous classes, people always brought up the notion of reincarnation there. But what is sin but a belief in separation?
Yes.
And pulling. So when maybe we could say that when we sin, we're really being, for that moment, being born blind. We're blind because we're separating ourselves from our source and believing that we are in separation.
Yes.
And the other thing is with the ocean, with the storm, and water represents thoughts, and it's when the storm was coming up and the waters were rough, it's a confusion and comment. This is just my idea, because in water we have divine ideas and we have our ideas, and so there's a confusion, a conflict of ideas, and that brings up when we're in that place of confusion and in conflict with something where can't sleep about, where that storm comes up. So, and until we can let go and become still, that's where we're in the place where peace be still in His eye.
Yes, excellent point. Because the place where that took place, the disciples were going from Bethsaida, okay? And that means place of nets. And you remember when the disciples cast their nets into the sea. Some of them were fishermen. They cast their nets into the sea, and they would catch some good fish and some not so good fish. And you're absolutely right. That's a great insight that that whenever the old and the new come together, like the new wine in the old wineskins, and the new piece of cloth to patch an old worn out piece of cloth, and like you bring them together, and there's that chemicalization, there's that confusion and that turmoil. That's a great point. Yeah. And
I guess it's in the midst of the storm, we have to make a choice, and Peter had to make a choice. He let his fears take over, and he began to sink into old thoughts, but when we make the choice, I'm not judging by appearances. Today I choose the Christ that's within me. When we do that, we experience that peace that surpasses understanding.
yeah, it's very good. And I think that we are very much like Peter, but we can be aware of the times when we sink into the old thought patterns, and refer back. That's the beauty of having a standard of truth, is that you have a solid reference point, and you can say, I have faith in the protecting power of Jesus Christ, or you can make up your own something that draws you back to the truth. And we all do that. Peter wavers, which is why he needs his brother Andrew to keep him on track. And we need all of our disciples. And if you recall, there's a time when Jesus goes up on a mountain, and he takes with him Peter, who represents faith, James, who represents judgment, and John, who represents love. And he's demonstrating to them, this is called the Transfiguration, but he's demonstrating to them that what you need for wholeness, these three qualities to be activated. All right, we need faith to believe in the one power and one presence. We need the discernment to know the difference between truth and non-truth. And we need love, which unifies us to the source. And then he goes beyond that, and he asks them, and they say, oh yeah, shall we build 3 booths? One for Elijah and one for Moses? And that's, at that point, Jesus is not only one with the power and presence, but he's one with the law and the prophets. Because when you unite with the source, all right, Moses represents the law, so that's the fulfillment of the law. And then Elijah represents the prophets, the still small voice. Elijah is the one who found God in the still small voice. And so, and as a result of that, and it kind of scared those disciples, because it was like there was nothing but blazing white light. And they were actually scared. And so then when they opened their eyes after being blinded by that light, they saw that only Jesus was there. And it was like having a vision. I forget why I started to tell you that, but just that the disciples, all of them, are needed in order to support the unfoldment of the Christ. So Peter plays a great role, always, but Peter alone can't do it. Charles Fillmore calls that blind faith, and blind faith goes a certain distance, but it really takes understanding faith so that you can say, there is infinite abundance. I am one with the source of infinite abundance, and you know that that is a truth. It may not be the truth that you are feeling that way, but that is the truth, that there is infinite abundance. And so if that's something you say when you look at a terribly low bank account, and that brings you back, so much the better. Okay, so that's the truth that can always bring us back, and that is the bringing back. I see that as the faculty of strength, which is invisible. You know, Andrew isn't there physically, but obviously Peter is, and Peter carries with him that invisible presence. Not only, something that keeps him on track. And, and then it's James who recognizes that, there are these different, there's law and prophets and all of this. But the connection to the source. And you can't just have the connection to the source either, because there's no impulse to do anything. Okay? And so all these faculties have to work together. All have to work together. Jesus never sent them out alone.
So if you're only connecting, you're not expressing.
No, you're not. You're experiencing, but you're not expressing. All right? So you don't just meditate. You meditate and then you act, because through your action, which is service in the world of whatever form you are capable of giving, then you are using that source, you're drawing it forth in your act of service. So the action part serves the purpose of integrating what you have gained in meditation and serving other people. So it's, faith and works Whoever said that?
James.
James, yes. I knew
James.
somebody had said that. Yeah. So
Show me your faith, I'll show you my
it's
works.
really
Yeah.
it's a wonderful point, and we have to remind ourselves, because it's so easy all the time to fall back in old thought patterns.
And I think what my opening statement was, and then I'll let you go, is the choice. Choose this day who you will serve, but choose in this crisis situation who you're going to serve. Are you going to serve the fearful, limited ego-thinking self, or are you going to serve the master that lies within us and within all of us? And so it's a choice, and I like that scripture, choose this day whom you will serve, but I think it really needs to be choose in this situation. It's probably a good thing to add to that, because when we're in a situation where we're the doubting Thomas, and we need to choose who we are serving. Are we serving the life, love, and wisdom within us? Or are we serving the doubting Thomas? I'm from Missouri. You got to show me.
Right. And actually, and just to add a little PS here, day does not mean 24 hours. Day actually means in this phase of experience, which do I choose? Am I going, just like you said? So, like the days of creation, it's at each stage, each situation that we meet, we get to choose according to our understanding and according to our experience. And yes, we have a choice, and we're only limited by our understanding and our experience. But every time we make a choice for truth, then that opens up a whole new avenue of choices. Always there's a choice, but you want to continually expand the choice, because eventually you have no choice but to serve the Christ.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Eleanor.
Yes, thanks for calling.
that comes out of Joshua. And in Joshua, the Lord tells them, be strong and courageous.
Yes.
I think because I think it's 24:9 where Joshua says, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord.
Yes.
But at 1:9, God, the Elohim Jehovah says, be strong and courageous. Don't tremble. Don't be afraid, for I am with you everywhere you go.
Yes. Okay. And there's also Bob. Are you still there? Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Are you still there? Okay.
I didn't realize it, but I guess I am.
It is I.
I'm just listening. Go on.
Yeah. Well, it was about choose this day whom you shall serve, and and it's like in the story where a man comes to Jesus about his son to be healed, and he says, "Oh, I believe, help my unbelief." And so there's a whole part of us, and so we get to choose which are we going to go with, my faith or my lack of faith. But he's asking for help, and so Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. That good shepherd will shepherd you through any storms that you can find."
I think a point to be made, and I don't like to keep referring to the gentleman. He has a name.
Chuck. His name is Chuck.
Chuck. Chuck said earlier when he was talking about Peter, and there is a difference, and I think, and then like Katie points out that there's a difference between belief and knowing. And Peter knew from a depth level that was revealed to him from that inner depth level, whereas we can believe something, and like you referred to earlier, as blind you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth doesn't set you free. It's knowing the truth.
Yes, exactly right. Faith, but you can believe.
Thank you, Chuck.
You can believe anything, but faith is knowing. Like if I drop this, what's going to happen?
It's going to hit the floor.
It's going to hit the floor. Do you know that, or do you just believe it? I think you know that it will.
Yeah.
Right? If you jump off of a cliff,
Right.
you know you're going to fall. Right.
That is the law.
That is the law. Yeah, and so you can say like that man does, help my unbelief, if you find yourself in a situation where you're not 100% choosing that day whom you shall serve. Anyway.
You know, he made me think of sometime it might be relevant to pray, Father, I need the Good Shepherd right now.
Oh.
And just pray for the Good Shepherd. I pray for whatever
Which
the
is
I
like
am Christ that you need.
praying for help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah.
Guidance.
Yeah. So he helped me form that prayer. See, so we're working together already. Peter, James, and John.
Yes, even a wordless prayer can have that attitude of help me. Okay. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize that that prayer had to have words to it until I came to unity. And I found that there's so many wordy prayers, and Jesus did not like wordy prayers. In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, don't be like the Pharisees and stand around praying and using all these long phrases and words to show how spiritual you are, or whatever. I had to actually learn how to use words in prayer when I came to Silent Unity. That was pretty scary. Yeah, that's why I so enjoyed doing the lesson on what's the word, because there's no words to describe that word, which is your connection to the source. How are we doing on time here? Are we
About there, aren't we?
It's 8:30 by
It's
my watch.
8:30. Hey, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
And Margot,
Thank you. Good night.
and Margot, if you're there, have a good evening.
Margaret's there. I disconnected her.
Oh, you disconnected her. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, hey, thanks,
Good night.
and
Thank
have a
you.
good evening. Bye-bye. Okay. Thank you all for being here. And always I like to just come together, close your eyes, and remember the truth that I am one with God. I am one with Christ. I am one with Christ in me. I am one with all life. And in that awareness, we go forth to do the greater works. Amen.
Amen.
And so if you out there would like to support us here at New Foundation Unity, we do our classes for a love offering. And please hold it in your hands and bless it with your awareness of that infinite source that is always wanting to express through you as your prosperity. Infinite substance. Whatever denomination of your gift, know that infinite substance is behind it. And as we send our gifts forth, we bless it with our offertory statement, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I give and all the good I receive. Let's speak that together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I give and all the good I receive. Thank you all. And next week we will finish speaking about the man born blind, and we will also begin with the raising of Lazarus. And then depending on how far we get, I'm aware that the wedding at Cana is really just the sort of basic step in creating an opening for the Christ to come forth. And that walking on the sea, instead of being number 5, is really number 4, and that the man born blind is number 5, and that raising of Lazarus is number 6, and that Jesus' own resurrection and ascension is number 7. So if I need to continue for one more Thursday, just wanted to let you know so you can put it on your calendar. So thank you. God bless you.